Hello, folks. Glad to be here. Glad to have you here. Yes, indeed, as the title says. Let me get some better light in here. Hold on. That's better. So, in Canada, folks, I don't know how merry of a Christmas it might be for many up there. Um, it's just, and this is, folks. A lot of this has to do with why socialized healthcare doesn't work because people in Canada now that there's like a 6 month waiting period for a knee operation, so to speak, and they're like, well, if you're in this kind of pain, we can give you some medical assistance in dying if you don't want to wait 6 months for your knee operation because they just don't have the money to fund it. They don't have the money to give the people what they need. Now, the premise of this is back in 1973, there was a movie it's now considered somewhat of a cult classic. It was called Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston, and the gist of this movie is that the world is overpopulated, significantly. There's not enough food, which I don't know. There's some striking similarities to it, and old people that they want to see Earth how it was, and this, that, and the other thing. The strawberry fields, the this, the that. And so they give them an opportunity to be euthanized. And as they are being euthanized, they get to see all of this stuff. Now, the one guy that was I guess was a philosopher or something. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. But he was, I guess like a mentor type, so to speak, to Charlton Heston's character in there. And he decided he wanted to be euthanized. And at the end, now mind you, before this, there were many types of Soylent. There was Soylent Orange, Soylent Yellow, I believe Soylent Brown. But Soylent Green was what everybody really wanted. And so what happened here is that as this professor, I don't really remember. I'm going to have to look it up here real quick. Okay. Charleston has to live Taylor Young. um, okay, so Detective Robert Thorne, his age friend Saul, his brilliant who is a former college professor. That's what I said. The Robert Thorne, the NYPD detective. Of course, this takes place in New York, and New York is overcrowded and it is overrun by riots. There are vehicles that have front end loaders and everything on them, kind of like snowplows, that say riot control because people are rioting in the streets, which is a lot like 2020. My late mother was still alive. We used to joke about this in 2020, like, wonder what 22 is going to look like. Hey, it's Soylent Green. It may be happening. So anyhow, in the preface here, near the end, Saul decides to have himself euthanized, and Charlton Heston follows where they take the body, and it goes to the Soylent factory, folks. And at this point, he realizes that what they're doing in the Soylent factory is turning these euthanized old people into food. It's a society of cannibals, folks. Near the end of it, you see the screen of him climbing through, saying, "It's people. Soylent Green is people." Now, many of you have probably heard about it. Many of you probably haven't watched the actual movie. Again, it's a cult film. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, again, medical assistance in dying in Canada. Canada is not. I mean, they're fairly well off, but because they have to take care of all these people and it's socialized healthcare, their healthcare system is becoming overwhelmed. There's waiting lists for all sorts of things. Not to mention that they, export a lot of their drugs cheaply to other countries like the United States. And many might say, well, but, if you get sick, you get care. Yes and no. It depends on the type of care. If you have a common cold or the flu or this, that, or the other thing, sure. if there's not a shortage of antibiotics. But now, folks, and I have two different sources on this. The first one we're going to look at here is the New York Post, which is an article from October 28th. It says Canada expanding assisted suicide law to the mentally ill. Medical assistance in dying, MAID, has been available in Canada since 2016 and is set to expand in March of 2023, extending eligibility to those with mental illness. Bill C7 would allow individuals seeking MAID to apply solely on the basis of mental disorder. Prior to the bill's passage, MAID eligibility was based on having a grievous and irremediable medical condition, i.e., stage 4 cancer, things of that nature. Paralysis, extreme paralysis, ALS, something like that, where it's like, okay, well, it kind of sucks to be alive anyway, so let's just end it. And not that I'm necessarily like a huge advocate for such things. I don't have a problem with it. It's like, a horse has a broken leg, whatever, it can't get fixed, euthanize the horse. Same thing with your pets and this, that, and the other thing. I don't see why humans shouldn't have the same option, but they have to be, and this is of the actual Canada guideline, it says, in order to be eligible for medical assistance in dying, you must meet all the following criteria. And again, this is from Canada.ca Health. This is Canada's official website. You must be eligible for health services funded by the federal government or a province or a territory, parentheses, or during the applicable minimum period of residence or waiting period of eligibility. Generally, visitors to Canada are not eligible for medical assistance in dying. Must be at least 18 years old and mentally competent. This means being capable of making healthcare decisions for yourself. You must have a grievous and irremediable medical condition and make a voluntary request for MAID, medical assistance in dying, that is not the result of outside pressure or influence, and give informed consent to receive medical assistance in dying. Now it goes on to say grievous and irremediable medical condition. To be considered as having a grievous and irremediable medical condition, you must meet all of the following criteria. You must have a serious illness, disease, or disability. And then in parentheses, it says excluding a mental illness until March 17th, 2023. St. Patrick's Day, ironically. How many Canadians you think might be super hungover the day after St. Patrick's Day and be like, oh man, this sucks. You get depression when you're hungover and this, that, and the other thing. And just might decide they want to end it. And all they got to do is sign a form and it's free and probably somewhat painless. I don't know how they do it. They probably give you morphine, Dilaudid, this, that, or the other thing until you're, you're super doped up and then eventually you just die. That's the first thing. I was just my input into it. You must be in an advanced state of decline that cannot be reversed, i.e. a terminal illness. Experience unbearable physical or mental suffering from your illness, disease, disability, or state of decline that cannot be relieved under conditions that you consider it's acceptable. You do not need to have a fatal or terminal condition to be eligible for medical assistance in dying. Again, it goes to say, under the current law, Canadians whose only medical condition is a mental illness and otherwise meet all eligibility criteria were not be eligible for MAID until March 17th, 2023. Now, again, they're kind of sugarcoating it because, hey, who wants to say, Canadians are killing each other, eh? What the hell? Canada's supposed to be such a great place. It's not... You see, Justin Trudeau has spent so much money on bogusness and everything else. Their currency, at one point, was actually stronger than the U.S. during the term of Barack Hussein. Oh, believe it or not, it was. But this is a simple way because what happens is and I've said it a million times, even way back when, and I was listening to Glenn Beck the other day, and he said even when he was on Fox News, that he would talk about socialite Obamacare, for example, and how it would be a failure because you can't pay for it all. Taxpayers, unless you're taking like 50% of every taxpayer's income just for that purpose, depending on your population. In Canada, maybe 30% would be reasonable, but in the United States, when you have so many undocumented illegal immigrants who get free healthcare and this, that, and the other thing, yeah, the taxpayer that actually pays their taxes is probably going to have to shell out half their income just for that. And then all the other taxes and everything else, they're going to be going home with 25% of their income. That's how you end up with a communist country because it pays you not to work. This is what the Democrats want. Now, that being said, fine, socialized healthcare, everything, it's great. It's great, right? Well, it is great. And as everybody says, socialism is the greatest people always. And Margaret Thatcher is the one that said it. Socialism works great until you run out of other people's money. And that is exactly what's happening in Canada. They don't have the money to fund these things. So the less people there are, the less healthcare bills they have to pay. I'm pretty sure they give you government and funded abortions too, because then they don't have to pay for the birth of the child. They don't have to pay for the 18 years of, all their doctor visits, the shots, the this, the that, for them in order to be able to attain school. And the 18,000 COVID vaccines that woke parents want to give their children. I don't know if they're that crazy in Canada like some of the liberals are here in the United States, but that being said, that's that's what you have going on. And here you have, or are we back to the New York Post? Bill C-7 will allow individuals seeking aid to apply solely based on medical control, blah, blah, blah. Prior to the bill's passage, May was based previous. Okay, we already went over that. Clarington School of Medicine professor Charles Camossi said Wednesday on Tucker Carlson Tonight that the bill would allow mature minors to be euthanized by state doctors without the consent of their parents. Camossi argued that the MAID practice exists for several groups already. We've got the homeless. We talked about that last time. The poor, the disabled, those with chronic pain. And then right before coming on, I researched a physicians group in Quebec that wants to kill newborn infants. That's what's coming next, he told Tucker. This is what happens when autonomy just goes nuts. The medical humanities professor said that healthcare has been hyper-securalized in recent years and is based on a cost-benefit analysis. Camossi said he doesn't think this type of law would come into effect in the U.S., but added doctors need to focus on saving the lives of their patients. What we need to do, he said, is support in whatever way we can healthcare that is about caring, not killing. There's a coalition of people coming up with a brand new medical school in the Padre Pio School of Medicine in 2026 that is going to do this very clearly and very ably. He concluded, we have to get off the couch and do something about this for those of us that see the writing on the wall. Oregon was the first state in the United States to approve medically assisted suicide, with the law going into effect in 1997. California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New Mexico, Vermont, Washington State, and Washington, D.C. have approved similar laws, all with residency requirements. Montana's Supreme Court has ruled that the law does not prohibit medical aid in dying. Now, what do all these states have in common, folks? They're Democrat-run states. They're very socialist states. For example, California is going to have to kill a lot of people if Gavin Newsom's proposed giving every African American $800,000 in reparations. That's what he wants to do. Now, again, back to the Canadian Post on this. They have under here, and as I was just reading, under the current law, Canadians whose only medical condition is mental illness and who otherwise meet all eligibility criteria will not be eligible, blah, blah, blah. So now let's see about mental illness and MAID. Here we go. If mental illness is the only condition leading you to consider MAID, you are not eligible to seek MAID at this time. Under the current law, the exclusion will remain in effect until the 17th of March 2023. We already went around that. After that date, people with mental illness as their sole underlying medical condition will have access to medical assistance in dying if they meet all of the eligibility requirements and the practitioners fulfill the safeguards that are put in place for this group of people. If you have a mental illness along with other medical conditions, you may be able to seek MAID. To note, eligibility is always based on an individual basis, taking into account all of the relevant circumstances. However, you must meet all the criteria to be eligible for MAID. Essentially, here we go. On June 22nd, 2022, the committee released an interim report on MAID and mental illness. And then, of course, there's two other things you have to read all the fine print, which nobody's really going to read, but we'll go into it here on this program. Medical assistance in dying and mental disorder as a sole underlying condition, interim report, June 2022. Let's see what we have here, folks. Holy sheep shit. This is a big list. Wow. I don't think we really have to go on. Okay, let's just jump to one. Let's just go maiden suicide. I mean, do you think suicide would be cheaper, folks? I don't know. Some witnesses told the committees that while the suicidality may be a symptom of mental disorder, many people with mental disorder are not suicidal, while others with no mental disorder are suicidal. Dr. Black said the motivation for the if it's suicide, in suicide, it's very rare to have a combination of a false fatalistic motivation, which is controlled response to a perceived stress, and agreed upon lack of remedy and a rational calculation of the likelihood of change. Whereas in MAID, this is almost always the case. In the literature, psychiatrists generally agree with the patient's unbearable suffering and futility of treatment in psychiatric MAID cases in the countries where this has been studied. What they're not telling you in this, folks, is that, again, remember, minors that really show the thing, I believe this would be 16 and up, would be eligible for medical assistance in dying, right? Now, this could have a lot to do with a lot of things. You know, teenagers, particularly, primarily teenage females, gothic types, outcasts, this, that, and the other thing. You know, they cut themselves. I've seen it when I was in high school many times. Many of them have attempted suicide. In fact, there was a girl that jumped off the third floor at the same high school I went to. Of course, there was no third floor. I went there. This was a new building. This was a couple months ago. She survived with serious injuries. But if that person were to just go and say, I've had a bad day. This guy asked out, didn't want anything to do with me. I think I'm going to kill myself. And the doctor says, go right ahead. Here you go. Here's the drugs. There you go. And once you've taken that, I don't know if there's much of a way out. It's different. You see, someone that wants to take their own life with a firearm or this, that, or the other thing, the body has its own preventative tactics to stop one from doing it. You really, really, really need to want to do it. It's the same thing like with the Democrats and the gender transitioning, folks. You see, and this may fall into place. They want to give, in a lot of these blue libtard states, they're actually doing this. They will give kids puberty blockers. There have been many girls who have had double mastectomies, had their vagina turned into a penis, and then realized, once they actually came of age that I don't really like girls. I like dudes because I was born with a vagina and now I have a schlong. And what am I going to do? Be a gay guy with a schlong? It happens. There have been many of them have talked about it, and their life is ruined, folks. There was a former Navy SEAL, I believe he was on Tucker Carlson the other night. He was a male, transitioned into a female, and realized, hey, you know what? I don't like this. I want my dick back. Well, guess what, folks? It's easier to make a hole than a pole. And they want to do this to kids. And the Democrats say, well, they're discriminating against the transgenders, and it's going to make them want to kill themselves. Wrong. They'll want to kill themselves even more after they have their dick lopped off, or their pusai turned into a penis. Do you get where I'm going, folks? So if Canada is allowing this, and you have all these teens like, oh my God, I want my dick back. Or, I want my vajayjay. I want to kill myself. Well, go right ahead. Well, the government paid for your damn sex change operation anyway. At least we're not going to pay for your health care for the rest of your life. This is what it is. They're offering this to people to save a buck because they can't afford it. Socialized healthcare doesn't work. They are running out of other people's money. Do you get it? And the people that don't want to pay these exorbitant taxes will make their own small businesses, especially weed's legal in Canada. Hey, I'm going to make my own little weed farm, sell my own little dope. Got to pay me cash, though, eh? Got to pay me cash, eh? Got to pay me cash, buddy. And I'm not going to report anything. I'm not going to pay my taxes, but I'm still going to get free health care. You see? In the United States, we don't have socialized health care. So, you know what? You don't want to pay your taxes? That's fine. But you got to shell out money when you got to go to the hospital. It gets rid of incentivization. There are so many ways around it. That's why socialism never has worked and never will. Well, Democrats say, well, then we just haven't done it right. No, there is no right. There is only wrong. And maybe eventually people will get some ox carts and pull their heads out of their asses and figure this out. Because all the liberal Americans say, well, look how well it works. Look how happy people are in other countries. They don't have guns in other countries. They have universal health care. But you know what else, though? There's a lot of differences. A lot of these other countries don't have as many people. And their citizenship requirements are a lot more strict. It's harder to get into Canada than it is to get into the United States from Canada. It is harder to get into Mexico than it is to get into the United States from Mexico, because all you have to do is walk across the Rio Grande. So that's what I'm getting at, folks. Soylent Green, and now Biden, Title 42 going to end. We're going to have at least, what did they say? Like 20,000 a day coming in? I don't know if that was the number. Maybe that was the number for the rest of the year. But we've already had like 6 million documented illegal immigrants that crossed. That has this year, or maybe it was since Biden took presidency, but those aren't the ones that never got caught. They never got caught and released. So going back to a few months ago when DeSantis sent those illegals to Martha's Vineyard, a place where they're like, oh, we love all immigrants. And then they got rid of them within 48 hours and said this was an act of cruelty. Oh, it's 50. Imagine what Texas has to deal with every day. And rumor has it, on Redacted the other night, last night I think it was, they were talking about with all this flow of immigration, they're trying to make one regional government, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Now, if that were to happen, the best thing that can happen to the United States, and it would suck for us Republicans, Texas would have to secede from the Union, which they could easily because they joined the Union by treaty. They could become their own country. That's why they're called the Lone Star State. And that way they could build their own firing squad along the border, finish the wall, and that would stop the immigration crisis. And then once we get some competent leadership in Washington, Texas could join the Union again. If it got that crazy, I would hope Florida would secede as well, although it would be a little bit harder for us. But we'd already have the best president in the world if that happened. We'd have Ron, as Trump says, de sanctimonious. That's my end on the immigration talk. We got a few more minutes left here. Now, speaking of Trump, he released 49,000 NFTs, basically digital trading cards portraying himself as a superhero. And a lot of people, even including myself, thought this was a joke, and it was kind of dumb in the way that he did it. He was selling them for $99 a piece. They all sold out within a couple of hours. So that just goes to show you there is still a huge Trump. Now, that's 49,000. That's not even a fraction of the population of Dade County. But they sold. Maybe he did it small, but that's like over $4 million right there. Boom, into the campaign. He's raising money, folks. But the question is, what are the Democrats and the never Trump Republicans like the McConnells, the Romneys, the Murkowskis, this, that, and the other thing they're going to do? On to that, we also have that, as Buck Sexton calls him, billionaire midget Frodo Baggins. Well, I'm a vegan. My name's Sam Bankman-Fried, and I'm a vegan, and I avoid eating my place in the Bahamas, and I'm a billionaire, and I donate to Democrats, but I donated to everybody. I donated to Republicans too, I donated to Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, and I wonder if he donated to Mitt Romney as well, and Mitch McConnell. You donate to Republicans that work in favor of the Democrats, so that's what you do. A little short, ugly version of Frodo Baggins. I'm not gonna say it. Looks like some hairy fucking asshole I used to know. I don't talk to anymore. Who's probably a homeless loser by now. Anyhow. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be having orgies with Sam Bankman-Fried because he has a vegan. Just wants to, could save the world. And Joe Biden. Oh, and by the way, I'm a vegan. I just want to save the world. What the hell am I doing in this uncomfortable Bahamian prison where I have to eat cockroaches and rats? I don't want to eat meat, give me some tofu, some soy or something. Oh, we give you human feces. Would you like that? This guy, you know what? I have a cow in my backyard. I have goat in the backyard. They are vegetarian. You're a vegetarian, you can eat the shit. Well, I guess that's a little bit better than, eating meat, because I'm a retarded vegan. That's just what saves the world. I did it today. Oh, and that's another thing. AOC apparently came out with some kind of movie or something that's in theaters. On the first day, it averaged bringing in $80 a theater. You know how much a movie ticket is in some of these places where this was being shown? About $20. So that means about 4 people went in each theater in one day. Actually went to watch the documentary about how the 30 cows and cars are destroying the universe, but I fly around on private jets and didn't even get pedicures from my boyfriend and husband's ugly feet and his ginger cuckness. And Joe Biden had to get shown off the stage by a little girl at Toys for Tots event, folks. Thankfully for the little girl, he didn't try and sniff her. Maybe his teleprompter thing read, okay, exit. Don't sniff the child, Joe. Whatever you do, don't sniff the child. I'm sure there was a lot more we could have gotten to, folks, and I will probably do one last show before I leave on maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, but then I'm going to be off for a while. So anyhow, let's go, Brandon, and Merry fucking Christmas to you, because here on this program, we still say it. And just make sure, if you're traveling to Canada, make sure whatever you eat doesn't say Soylent Green. It's people. Cheers, folks.